Okay, dear fellows, we are finally at the last day. So our last day activity will start from the panel discussion from our very important guest, who is in the leading role in AP organizations. So I will hand over the floor to our moderator, Professor Sam. So, Professor Sam, floor is yours. Have a big hand to welcome them all.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's panel discussion on advancing a secure, inclusive, and ethical digital future in the Asia-Pacific region. We are privileged to have a distinguished group of panelists who will share their expertise on bridging the digital divide, strengthening cybersecurity, and enhancing multi-stakeholder internet governance. So today we have Mr. Akinori Maemura, Policy Manager of JPNIC. He is also the Director of DotAsia and a professor as well. We have Rajnesh Singh, CEO of APNIC Foundation. We have Edmon Chung, CEO of DotAsia. We have Dr. Kenny Huang from Taiwan, and Ms. Athena Foo, Stakeholder Engagement Manager from ICANN. So we will start off by asking each panelist to introduce themselves. Let's start with Akinori Maemura.
Thank you very much. Ohayo gozaimasu, minasan. Good morning, everyone. My name is Akinori Maemura, Chief Policy Officer of Japan Network Information Center, JPNIC. JPNIC, it's a Japan Network Information Center. The founded as an unincorporated group in 1991. 1991 is really the early stage of the internet, where, for example, the commercial internet is has started in 1990, 89, 90. Then we had a quite huge, steep demand of the IP addresses and the domain name, and then the JPNIC is for solving such a demand. That's a starting of the JPNIC. Then we incorporated as the Incorporated Association in 1997, and then actually the span of the domain name registration service to the Japan registry service, JPRS, in 2002. So JPNIC is still doing the IP address management and the internet promotion. So in a way, very simplistically explain what is JPNIC is for me. Half APNIC-ish, IP address management business, half ISOC-ish, internet promotion business. So this is the JPNIC. And myself is, one page up, please. Myself is the precising the JPNIC's activity in the area of the policy development, policy research, and the participating and the international and external relationship. And then as a JPNIC employee, I have been involved in ICANN, Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Number, which is the company of the Athena Foo, working as the board of director for 6 years. And beforehand, I was the board member of the APNIC, Asia Pacific Network Information Center, and there I was serving as the chair of the board. And then still doing that, after that, I joined the DotAsia board that Edmon Chung is leading there as a board member, and then this year I am serving as the chair of the board. So in short, I am have been long involved in the internet coordination, And then that's my point of any intervention. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Maemura. Quite a wide expertise on internet and internet governance. Mr. Rajnesh Singh, please.
Technical difficulties. It's a Sunday, come on. Well, good morning. My name is Rajnesh Singh, or Raj. I don't have any slides, so I'll just speak for a few minutes perhaps. I'm the CEO of the APNIC Foundation. Who has heard of APNIC Foundation? Not APNIC, but APNIC Foundation. You all should have, because we helped you get here. We're one of your sponsors, right? And of course, APNIC itself, which my good friend Kenny is the chair of the EC of, is the organization that does, and I'm sure Kenny will speak to this later, but the IP address management in the region. The APNIC Foundation is complementary to what APNIC does. What we focus on is internet and digital development in the region. So, you know, internet infrastructure is important, as I'm sure all of you have been hearing and discussing over the last few days. But it's also important to ensure that we bridge the gaps that exist out there in the region, in our region in particular. The region is very diverse, of course, as we all know. It's the largest region in the world. We've got the most advanced economies in the region, and we've got some of the most poorest and least developed. So our focus is to ensure that the benefits of the internet get to where it can have the most impact. We do that in three ways, through programs that touch on infrastructure, inclusion, and knowledge. Look, I don't want to go on and on about it. Please visit our website. There's a lot of information there. If there's anything we can help you with, let us know. Very quickly about myself. I've been around for far too long in the internet governance space. Funnily enough, though, I do not come from the internet governance space. My background, I've got 2 degrees in engineering. Both have nothing to do with the internet. One is power engineering, and the other one is telecom engineering. So I'm a second switch guy, not a packet switch guy. But as a lot of my friends said to me, I came over to the dark side in the very, mid-90s, I suppose you could say. So I saw the light, and I embraced the internet world, and I've been there since. I've done a lot of work. I did a lot of startups. I was fortunate enough to retire fairly early in life, and I thought I'd give back to the development sector, so that's why I'm here today. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Raj. I remember Raj and I go a long way back when we used to talk about internet, and we were only talking about bytes and kilobytes. There was nothing such as megabytes or gigabytes. Thank you. Let's move on to Mr. Edmon Chung.
Thank you. This is Edmon, and I work for an organization called DotAsia. As the name suggests, we are actually what's called a top-level domain, so a domain name registry. So if you read, if you've been to the APNG website, you should have typed in apng.asia and figured that out. So that's where our income comes in. So people register .asia names, we collect a fee, but all that money goes back into supporting internet development and adoption across Asia Pacific, and supporting APNG and many other initiatives is what .asia does. So next time you think about starting something or for Asia especially, think about registering the .asia domain. But for myself, I've been participating in the internet governance ecosystem. This is generally how we talk about it these days, for the last 25 years. Actually, freshly graduating from the University of Toronto, I started a company that did what is called internationalized domain names, which means domain names or email addresses in different languages. So 25 years ago, I guess, when I started down the path of internet governance and thinking about the internet infrastructure system, I was one of the, I guess, culprit of bringing the multilingual internet into existence. But I'm still working on it because I'm sure many of you still don't have your own language email address or domain names, because there are many both governance, market, and other issues that I can come back to when I talk a little bit about the digital inclusion part. And which brings me actually there to another topic that we will touch on today, and I believe it is about collaboration and diversity, because the internet itself is all about building trust among people. To let the bits and bytes go through. This is something that is really interesting because when I started participating in the governance systems, I realized that, oh, that's interesting. There was, at the very beginning, there was no agreements, everyone just worked, trustfully between each other, and there's no protocol police. Nobody, comes and says you didn't implement this, and so you're, locked in jail. But people, built the internet with trust and good faith, but that changes. Right? I mean, security issues, security matters changes. But what brought me to the internet was that in that period where trust is still, the way, and I still believe trust is still the way to keep the internet governance ecosystem together. But then and now is a very different world. But one of the things which ICANN, what actually brought me to ICANN, which I think Athena will talk a little bit more about, is that some things are managed distributedly on the internet. What I said, the different networks, but some things need to be centralized. There's very few things that need to be centralized, but ICANN represents one of, a few of them, actually most of the ones that require centralization, because you don't want, your domain name to, suddenly go to very different places depending on where you are. Just like the IP address routing, they should route to definitive addresses. And that requires a centralized management. And that's what ICANN does, and that's what brought me into the internet governance discussions. But there, I think diversity matters, because when you talk about the policies that determine how allocation of domain names or IP addresses, then we at ICANN, what is now called a multi-stakeholder model is really really develops. Before ICANN, there are multi-stakeholder models, but they were not called that way. Only until a period of time when ICANN was challenged by the UN system, the concept of multi-stakeholder model evolved. And we realized that all along the way, the internet governance ecosystem was about this multi-stakeholder model, which we are going to talk about later today as well. But that's the kind of environment that I grew in, and that's the kind of diversity that I believe in. Because the multi-stakeholder model is not government-driven, not like the UN model. That's why we think it's important. And I'll touch on that a little bit more, but I will say this here to close my introduction, is that if everyone wants to make the country great again, we have a problem.
Not America?
We have a problem. Because then nobody cares about a global, interoperable, and open internet. And that's why we want a multi-stakeholder model, and which we will talk a little bit further in our panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Edmon. I thought you would say make America great again. Anyways, yes, at the moment, if we talk about internet is not accessible to everyone, especially those that cannot read and understand English, because most of the internet at the moment is in English or some other language, and there are many regional languages and many users that are not able to use the internet because they do not know the language. And I think there is a movement from Kenny's group, and within ICANN there is another group that is known as the Universal Acceptance Group that is going to ensure that internet is available in all languages and all different scripts of languages in time to come. Thank you. Let's move on to Dr. Kenny Huang.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. I'm Kenny Huang, Chair of APNIC Executive Council and Chair of Taiwan Network Information Center. Basically, as Raj just mentioned, APNIC is responsible for IP address policy and allocation in Asia-Pacific region. So theoretically, we try to develop policies through the community effort, community to try to propose their policy proposal and go through our policy development process to define the policy. And once the policy has been adopted, then APNIC will execute that kind of policy. That's what we do for policy allocation. In terms of policy allocation, APNIC also have very important function, and that's to secure, to deliver the RPKI certificate, because that makes sure all the address holder, you can propagate your route to the internet, global internet routing system, make sure that route was originally held by you in person. So that makes sure the internet routing system is most stable and most secure way. And in terms of Taiwan Network Information Center, basically we have two functions. One of the functions is to also, same as APNIC, define and develop IP policy in Taiwan, and we do the IP address allocation in Taiwan. The other function we also is a country called top-level domain. We provide .tw registration, so also define the policy for CCTLD. On my head, in terms of ICANN community, I was the chair of CCPDP for working group. That is responsible for IP address, responsible for international domain name recognition and the recognition process according to the set of principle and also according to the policy approved, proposed by the community, approved by the ICANN board. And since the policy has been approved by the ICANN board, so ICANN has a legitimate power to derecognize any CCTLD. For example, I can just take down the CCTLD code .su because it doesn't comply with the international standard ISO 3166. In terms of international standard, I'm personally happy working with the technical community. I'm also the author for IETF 3643, and that's RFC standard. And also I'm working with the IET, working on space allocation, space internet protocol as well. So working on that kind of advanced protocol, we can make sure even all our protocol running on Earth that can be running into the space. And not more than run into the space, we're also working on interplanetary internet registry to make sure space are allowed to allocate IP address in the space, has a seamless communication to the Earth. So that's what we do in terms of internet governance. And back to today's topic, and Edmon just mentioned some key point. In the early day of the internet, if people just believe each other, that's called blind trust. Basically, nowadays we're talking about zero trust. That means you never trust anyone, anything, always verify. And what's the difference between these two things? Two different kinds of spectrum in different left-hand side and right-hand side, because it really depends on, that's highly concerned with our topic today, and how we choose blind trust, how we choose never trust, because it all depends on the opportunity cost. In the early day, we used a stupid internet, and because the opportunity cost to deploy stupid internet is extremely cheap. But nowadays, when we try to deploy a little bit advanced internet, probably the opportunity cost is more tolerant. And if you don't deploy secure internet, your opportunity cost is extremely high because a lot of cyber attack, a lot of data leakage. So you need to find a way to balance how to have a blind trust, how to balance with a zero trust as well. So we can go back to the panel discussion later today. So back to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny. Quite interesting. I mean, you might want to ask yourself, who does the internet belong to? And who is responsible for its governance? Keep on thinking about that, and later on, you will be, I will ask you for your responses. In the meantime, we move on to Ms. Athena Foo.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Athena, and I'm from ICANN. ICANN is a global organization where a lot of the internet policy making takes place as one of the few large bodies, as mentioned by Edmon. But ICANN also has several regional offices. In APAC, we have one, and it's in Singapore, which is where I am based at. So I'm from the APAC office. Can we go to slide 4? Yeah, this one. Yeah, so how many of you know what ICANN does? Okay, so this is one of, I would say, one of our greatest successes, also one of our greatest failures, in that we work so well, no one knows what we do. So any of you, if you have, I'm sure you have used the internet. When you go onto the internet, do you type a domain name or do you type an IP address? You type a domain name, right? And that's because as human beings, we remember names better than a string of numbers. But but computers do not work that way. How computers communicate with each other is protocol numbers, IP addresses. So what we do at ICANN is we manage the domain name system, or DNS for short, and this is essentially what happens from the moment you type in a domain name address till the moment your screen or the web page loads onto your screen. But to do what is seemingly a very simple process that takes maybe a few milliseconds actually requires a lot of coordination from a lot of parties. And this is what I will talk about more later during the discussion on what it means to govern the internet space in a multi-stakeholder model approach. So just very quickly, the internet, from where ICANN comes in, is we manage the domain name space, primarily the top-level domains, so your .com, .org, .nets. We deal with what we call the generic top-level domains. There is another type of TLDs, country code TLDs. So for Japan, .jp, Taiwan, .tw, so on and so forth. So that's the names part. Names corresponds to IP addresses, and these are managed by our regional internet registries, or RIRs for short. So in APAC, APNIC is the one that manages the distribution and allocation of IP addresses. And like any language, names, addresses, they need to adhere to certain standards, certain protocols. And these standards are set by a body called the Internet Engineering Task Force, or IETF for short. So broadly speaking, this is what the domain name system ecosystem looks like, where ICANN is a part of, and we work with these stakeholders, these entities very closely to make sure the internet continues to work the way that it is. And I'll stop here for now. Yeah.
Thank you, Athena. So we will now move to the first topic of our panel discussion, which is bridging the digital divide and digital inclusion. And as you have heard the panelists speak about what they're doing within the digital space, for example, Raj mentioned that there is a digital divide. And if you think of our Asia-Pacific region, it is such a big region, so many different countries, so many different languages, and so many different scripts that we have to deal with. And probably looking at China and India, we are already like combined 1/3 population of the world, right? So let's start with Edmon on his view on how we can bridge the digital divide and bring digital inclusion for everyone.
Thank you. That is a very big question. I don't think I will be able to do that, but I did ask to you, and you asked who wanted to speak first on a particular topic. I did say this because I want to talk about digital inclusion, but also meaningful connectivity, but something that is interesting. I don't know if my video could be played. Is that? We can play it now, Edmon. Right. Yeah. Okay. So wait a minute. Wait. Just if you can play it on my cue. So we believe also that it's not just about digital inclusion, but meaningful connection, because just the connectivity is not enough. But there's one more thing that I want to talk about, and this is what the video is going to talk about, which is sustainability, and how, interestingly, they come hand in hand. So please, if you can.
Index 2023. Not only did Japan turn around its reliance on fossil fuels, it is tackling climate poverty at the same time, and partnering with nations around Asia to decarbonize with clean and reliable energy, which helps eradicate poverty and drive economic growth. experts recognize that improving access to clean energy reduces poverty by increasing education and improving public health. World Bank says that solar-powered off-grid solutions are crucial to connecting the poorest and hardest to reach. That means digital inclusion, which brings the education and economic benefits of the internet to even the remotest parts of the world, must be powered by clean energy. Our friends at .uz are doing exactly that with the IT Village project. Instead of having mountain kids travel to the city, the IT Village brings the internet to the mountains in the Samarkand region of Uzbekistan, teaching school children media literacy and coding, providing youth essential skills to thrive in cyberspace. What is more exciting is that the IT Village is powered by solar energy. Digital transformation and sustainable energy comes hand in hand. Perhaps that is why Japan is #1 in digital economy, according to the EII data. To learn more, go to ecointernet.asia. Do more, waste less.
Yeah, so I guess what I wanted to leave with you guys is really that when we talk about digital inclusion, there are other two things that come hand in hand, which is sustainability and also the what did I want to say? I forgot. It's sustainability and also meaningful access, because if you don't have the right content and the ecosystem, just creating the infrastructure is not useful. But if you create the infrastructure itself is of course important, but when you build it, think about sustainability. That's why that's one of the things that I think is really important. And I will touch on one more thing, and for this particular session is related back to the multilingual internet part that I talk about. I think a lot of people think about when they talk about multilingual domain names and email addresses, they would say it's kind of good to have, and that's why it took so long. Still, it's not popularized in my mind. But if you think about it the other way, it is a fundamental way of accessing the internet and also managing your logins. How many of your logins are actually email addresses, right? I mean, even though email itself might be slightly less used, all our passcodes still come through the email. Many of the processes, that's the fundamental part. So having meaningful access requires us to have meaningful ways of identifying ourselves on the internet as well. And I think that's how we ensure marginalized communities who are not already on the internet. If you're already on the internet, you probably know English a little bit and can manage a little bit. But it is those 2 billion that is still not on the internet. Those are what we want to bring in, and the multilingual internet is a very important part of it.
Thank you, Edmon. I mean, looking at the Asia-Pacific region, I come from the Pacific region, and we have islands separated by hundreds of kilometers of sea. How do we get them connected? Then looking at the Asia region, you have villages up in the mountains, very remote mountains, no roads, no infrastructure. So I pose this question to Rajnesh. What are the most significant challenges in closing the digital divide in the Asia-Pacific region?
Thanks, Sam. So let me answer that by taking a slightly different approach. I said before that this is the most diverse region in the world. We're in Japan, perhaps one of the most advanced economies in the region, but not far from here are other economies which don't have that same development index. Now, one of the issues that we have, and this has concerned me for the last, let's say, several years now in particular, that we've been talking about digital divide for at least 30 years. Ever since I entered this space, even when I was in the private sector, digital divide was a thing. Much has been done over the last couple of decades, but we're still having the same discussions, right? I went to a couple of UN meetings recently, and there was a particular person there that I had done some work with at the UNDP about 30 years ago. Funnily enough, we were talking about the exact same thing we last talked about 27 years ago when we last met. So that tells me that, yes, we may be fixing things, but things are not necessarily getting better because other problems have been created. So that's what one of my concerns is, that we're now starting to create new digital divides. Now, what is a new digital divide? At a very fundamental level, an economy that's embraced IPv6 and one that hasn't embraced IPv6, still running IPv4 systems. An economy that has big, fat transit capacity, submarine cables connecting it to the rest of the world, and another economy that doesn't. Because all those factors will determine what people can do with the internet in their own economies, right? I'll give you another example. About 6-7 years ago, I was in Delhi, India, and I was connected to what was supposedly a 4G LTE network. But I could barely get more than half a meg downloads on that link. So mind you, so this is before, if anyone from India is here, this is before Geo came into play, right? So this was the bad old days of LTE networks in India. 2 days later, I was in Seoul. I was also connected to a 4G LTE system, and I was getting more than 100 megabit downloads. Same phone, same device, same network provider, but two different situations. Both claiming to be 4G, but they weren't, right? So these are the sort of digital divides that we're now starting to create. If you have access to high-powered computing resources, you can do so much more with it, whether you are in the academic sector, you are at university, or you're running a company somewhere, right? If you have access to their processing power, you can do so much more. And someone, let's say a company in Laos, may not have those same opportunities. Laos is landlocked. It has no submarine cable access, right? Nepal, same thing, no submarine cable access. Power reliability is a problem, right? Also, don't forget that without reliable, consistent power, things don't work. And then overlaid on top of that, now everyone wants to do AI, right? It's just the super hype everywhere. But to do AI, you need a lot of computing power. You also need technical skills. You need an ecosystem that will support all those technologies. Do they exist everywhere in the region? No. That's another digital divide that we're creating. So these are the sort of things that I'm concerned with. Now, to very briefly try, well, I'm going to try and answer that question, Sam, because we haven't done it for 30 years, and I suspect I'll be long gone, and that question will still remain unanswered. But we have satellite capabilities these days which are making things easier, but that does not actually solve the problem in totality, right? We have a whole lot of submarine cable going back. So, I mean, Sam will remember this. Back in the 90s, there was only one submarine cable in the whole of the Pacific. The Pacific Ocean is 1/3 of the Earth, in case you didn't know that. That's how big the Pacific Ocean is. There was only one cable linking the US, Hawaii, Australia, Fiji, and New Zealand, right? Now there's cable going all over. Meta's deploying cable, Google is deploying cable. So these are now content companies or service providers, not telecom companies, who are deploying cable. So cable is no longer an issue, but the issue still remains: what is the supporting digital ecosystem required to make use of that cable, to leverage that cable? You know, so that I think is a bigger question that we need to deal with as well. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you, Raj. I mean, Raj just mentioned that within the Asia-Pacific region, we are here in Japan, and Japan has a super economy at the moment, ranked like second or third in the world, and advanced in technology. So, Mr. Maemura, do you still have the digital divide problem, or have you solved it? If yes, then please enlighten us.
Thank you very much. It is a complicated question, by the way. Yes, I would say yes, because even in Japan, maybe you, the people here, know Japan through the cities like Tokyo or Osaka, and then here we are in Iizuka. Iizuka is quite a successful, prosperous mining city in last century, but they had a very, had a quite demand for the evolution to another industry, and now they are successful, and the Kyutech kind of the university, and the innovation is one of the very good theme of this city. But still, by the way, I'd like to invite you to my own morning walk, 6 a.m. at the lobby, please. I'm really happy to walk around. and then 1 hour walk, we'll find a lot of charms of this city, but still, it is a very small city, not really, the population is highly dense. So Tokyo is like that, Iizuka is like that, and we have more and more suburban area. And then the suburban area has sometimes some difficulty to have the access to the internet or some other telecommunications means. So in the rural area, we definitely lack of the telecommunication, and it separate the people from the so-called information society. That's actually one of the case. That even in the country like Japan has its own the problem of the digital divide. So this is the case of Japan. And I'd like to have some more talk because I had a really strong impression where I am looking into. I was making the deep dive into the Internet Governance Forum sessions. I made 200 sessions to summarize and make a report. So in the 200 sessions, we have a lot of lot of sessions themed for Africa. Then there is a lot of session deal with the innovative business model which helps Africa, or innovative the AI which helps Africa. But such kind of the various topic session has the same conclusion that they need access. So without access, we don't take advantage of the fantastic technology or innovation. So access is a really, really key for every information technology. So that's my point. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maemura. I mean, we just heard, I think from Raj, that when we talk about digital divide, now we talk about digital divides among those that are IPv4 and those that have upgraded to IPv6 and those are still using IPv4. So can you enlighten us on that?
Okay, thank you. Basically, Raj already mentioned our legacy infrastructure all deployed by IPv4, but we do encourage most of people, most of our members, most of the telecommunication service operator, they upgrade to their infrastructure from V4 to V6. And because you have more capability, more advanced protocol, and more space, most important, you have more space. And you can deploy the infrastructure without any physical limitation consideration. So we encourage all the service providers upgrade to their advanced protocol to IPv6. And the other issue is just either we have internet access issue, and we also have internet security issue. And for example, a lot of people doesn't understand what's the implication for IP addresses and domain name regarding to the cybercrime. I give you a very simple example. For example, what would be the basic life cycle, abusive IP life cycle? Do you know how much time it takes for average, in average? In average, one abusive IP, their life cycle is around 2 days in average. And for abusive domain name, their life cycle is around 2 weeks. So you just keep in mind that those rough number. Abusive IP address, their life cycle is 2 days, less than 2 days. Abusive domain name, less than 2 weeks. Precisely will be 16 days. And when you're doing the DDoS attack, usually that kind of life cycle for DDoS attack is less than 30 minutes. So why I discuss that kind of number? Because do you know how much time for a regular prosecutor, they try to file a case, do you know how much time they require? In average, it's around 2 months. That means we have cyber attacks, tens of millions of thousands every day. Every prosecutor, they can only handle one case in 2 months. And providing that they can access all the information they like. Not to mention, majority of cyber attack basically is out of your jurisdiction. And for example, TWNIC run in the Taiwan TWCC. According to our statistic, the majority of the attack, 99.9% of the attack, come from outside of Taiwan. And the same principle apply to everywhere. Or if you're living in Bangladesh, living in Japan, majority of cyber attack basically is outside your jurisdiction, because that's very difficult to tracing back when you try to identify who are potential cyber crime. So the current solution we have only have 3 solutions. The first solution is an MLAT, Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty, which was very complicated, and it takes extremely long time to collaborate, because once you identify the attacker come from any particular IP address, I need to file in the court. All the process goes through, as I mentioned, probably take years. And so mutual legal assistance treaty was not very effective. The second solution is Budapest Convention, like even worse. You can see as a large, let's amplify on MLAT. Because there are more countries connect together, go through that kind of cooperation. So all the time frame take even longer. The third solution would be go through legal cooperation among different police stations. They try to exchange some sort of partial intelligence among each other. But that kind of cooperation was not very accountable, because whether they collect data from outside your jurisdiction can be considered evidence, that will be very highly questionable in the court. So all kind of legal tools available today was not effective enough. Not to mention effective. It's almost hopeless to solve the cybercrime issue. That's why we need to collaborate in different stakeholder, multi-stakeholder, not only collaborate with law enforcement agent, we collaborate with operator, collaborate with ICANN, collaborate with APNIC. Try to identify the information we need and try to mitigate potential threat from different kind of technical tool or different kind of measure. So you need to fully understand the potential variable in our cyberspace and try to find the potential solution, either technical solution or governance solution, or it could be worthly legal solution, and try to all kind of tools combine together to mitigate the potential threat, and through that kind of multi-stakeholder cooperation. That's my summary. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kenny. Athena, where does ICANN stand on this issue?
Yeah, so I agree with Kenny that the issue of abusive domain names, it's one that requires a multi-stakeholder approach to try and address and mitigate. As you know, the internet and digital space is very porous. A lot of the attacks, the origins are not where they are happening. So, and because of that, it's not enough to just rely on your local law enforcement alone to try and tackle that issue. You need to work with what we call the registrars, the ones who operate your domain names, because they are the ones who have the direct communication channel with the people who own these domain names where all these malicious activities may be taking place. And at ICANN, we recognize this, and we have been talking about the issue of domain name abuse, which is basically the malicious use of domain names for some time now. And it is a multi-stakeholder effort. Governments, which is one part of our multi-stakeholder groups, they are talking about this and how they can work better with the rest of the ICANN partners to see how they can address this. We also have the contracted parties, so they form what we call the Generic Name Supporting Organization, GNSO. So this is the group that makes policies on domain names, and domain name abuse, tackling it is also one of their focus areas. In fact, I think a year or 2 years ago, they actually came together to talk about how they could strengthen their contract with ICANN to address DNS abuse better. So now, if there is any clear actionable evidence of a domain name being used for malicious activities, they have an obligation to go and investigate and act and disrupt the activity. So this is one of the things that I guess is one of the things that we're very proud of the multi-stakeholder model governance approach towards internet policy making, is that we bring the necessary different parties together to try and discuss the issues and what is an actionable way forward. Yeah.
Thank you, Athena. So, apart from a panel of experts sitting this side, I think we also have expertise on the other side. Just because you have made through the APNG selection process and has been invited as a fellow, you must be knowing a thing or two. So let me ask you a few questions. Next slide. So how many of you feel your country has made significant progress in closing the digital divide? For this, just a show of hands. If they have made progress, please put your hands up. Goodness. Oh, there's a lot of work to be done. And what is the biggest barrier to internet access in your country? How many of you think it is high cost? Hands up. Infrastructure gaps? All right. Government policies? And lack of digital literacy? All of the above, yes, yes, yes. All right, we'll just take 2 or 3 questions from the audience, and then we'll move on to the next topic.
Because I'm going to take this opportunity because all of the panelists are the kind of a leader in the internet government industry. I would like to curious about for the next generation, because this camp is for the next generation. Most of the panelists, not all of the panelists are talking about the multi-stakeholder approach and model. But one point that we are also talking about the bottom-up approach for the decision making, right? So how do you see the bottom-up approach is also needed to practicing in the AP organization and the camp like this, who is trying to, encourage the young people to be the next generation leader. What would be your opinion on that? Should we also adopt, what would be your suggestion to do the improvements of the camp, which is trying to, support the next generation to know more about the multi-stakeholder models and the bottom-up approach? What would be your suggestion to add into this camp regarding this matter? Because, yeah.
Thank you, Phil. Interesting question. It's time for us on this side to pass the baton, as the other side thinks that our time has come. Yes, Edmon.
So, very good question. Thank you, Pio. And I think, first of all, I totally believe in a bottom-up, multi-stakeholder, consensus-based model. But of course, not every organization needs to be doing that. But back to your specific question, I think when we talk about bottom-up, it's a lot about agenda setting. Right? What agenda setting means, your governments and the UN always like to say, oh, we do multi-stakeholder as well, but only in consultation. They set the agenda already. What is to talk about and who can talk about it is set already. I think bottom-up in the internet governance model, and also here, or creating systems that support capacity building, the agenda setting part is quite important. So I think if you want to think about it, at least in some of the things that we do, for example, NetMission.Asia is a program that we run. We embrace a way that the young people actually sets the agenda. The trainings program for the next year is set by those that came, the previous year before. So the agenda setting part being bottom up is I think a very important part of what we call internet governance, and that's also where Internet Governance Forum, also the Asia Pacific Regional Internet Governance Forum, the agenda setting part, how the workshop proposals are determined, who, what is being said in the sessions. That's from a bottom-up aspect, and I think that is probably a useful addition. Don't know whether it answers your question.
Thank you, Edmon. Quite interesting and probably something APNG will also think about. Mr. Maemura?
Yes, thank you very much. I am, in one part, echoing what Edmon said. And then I dare to say, I don't really like the word multi-stakeholder. Well, why? Because for me, the open and the bottom-up decision-making process is more fit. That fit more to my sense. For example, Kenny and I were more long involved in the APNIC process. APNIC is the IP address distribution body, and then we employ the open, the bottom-up policy-making process. Sometimes it wears multi-stakeholder banner. Then APNIC and the regional internet registry is really, really fantastic because all network operator of the internet, which is counts up the 76,000 network operators in the world. And then all these 76,000 operators are member of one respective regional internet registry. Everyone. So a regional internet registry is doing the policy making by ourselves. You doing that. Not anyone else doing that, right? It is really, really profoundly important. You are encouraged to be in the process to set the rule. So this is the extremely important, and then this panel should communicate about that to you. You are the guy who making it. Thanks.
Yeah, just Mr. Maemura, how do our fellows make contact with the registry and set what they want, or set the agenda, as Edmon said?
Yep. We have a lot of the meetings that we are encouraged to participate. For example, the APNIC, we have the two meetings a year, and then the fellowships are also available, and then everyone can participate in that. So with that, you can obtain the knowledge how to have you more involved in that process.
Thank you. Another fellowship opportunity for you guys.
That's right.
Ms. Athena?
Yeah, I just want to add on, and specific to Pio's question, is that I think one of the things that programs or initiatives in this part of the world, and I think APNG has done to some effect, is to try and simulate multi-stakeholder discussions in your program, because we talk a lot about how it works, but you need to actually kind of experience it for yourself, and if it's too difficult or challenging for you to go to bodies like ICANN or APNIC, having a simulated discussion on a real issue that a multi-stakeholder committee is discussing is actually a very good way for you to understand not just how it works, but when you role play and you have to understand what is the interest and position of that stakeholder group vis-a-vis the other group. I think that's when the multi-stakeholder experience becomes a lot more real for you and becomes, you appreciate it a lot more. And if you do have the chance to take part in any multi-stakeholder model approach, it's actually not easy because you are dealing with multiple interests, sometimes conflicting interests. And how you navigate that, how you compromise, how you find a consensus is actually the real value of the multi-stakeholder process, because once you're able to do that, it lasts. Yeah.
Thank you. Kenny?
Thank you very much. I also just add one more additional point. And because when we discuss a multi-stakeholder model, actually, I believe in a lot of economy, a lot of places, they also they try to exercise multi-stakeholder model, but eventually it's not very successful. The problem is when we consider problem and solution versus solution, they should be bind together. If multi-stakeholder model is a solution, and what kind of problem you try to solve? And we're only dealing with some sort of particular problem, for example, any global issue, regional issue in the cyberspace. That would be more effective for multi-stakeholder model. If any issue, that would be a local issue and just only small group of stakeholders in the local, then your legal system, your society model will work pretty well. It doesn't fit for multi-stakeholder model. So we're only dealing with all the cyberspace international issue or regional issue. That will be very effective because the government has outside government sovereignty, outside government jurisdiction. So that's why there's a space allow multi-stakeholder to discuss in different nations, try to address the common issue together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kenny. All right, so we will have more chance for audience questions at the end of the panel. Let's move on to the next topic. And the next topic is on cybersecurity, trust, and ethical digital governance. And we can already see, I think, there are some topics that the groups are discussing in terms of what can we trust today, right? And I think my group is also looking at media, whether it is fake or truth. And especially now, with the generative AI and deep fake and everything that is going on, voice cloning and things like that. So how can we trust? How can we manage that? And in terms of cybersecurity, I mean, I teach about cybersecurity, and nowadays we are worried that the cyber attacks are being launched with AI-powered cyber attacks. And that is going to cause heaps of problems. Quantum computing is gaining momentum and will start breaking traditional encryption and traditional cryptography. What are we going to do about that? So what we can say is trust in digital platforms is an all-time low. How do we build confidence in our users in terms of confidence in using the digital platform, trusting it, and providing them with the robust, resilient cybersecurity? So let's start with Kenny on this topic.
Okay, thank you. We just mentioned a little bit about the cybersecurity. As I mentioned, a majority of the tech come from outside of your jurisdiction, outside your sovereignty. So the making cybersecurity try to defense is very difficult, but basically it's also returned to the principle I just mentioned, opportunity cost. If you are able to calculate opportunity cost, you should be able to find a proper way to well defend you for your system, for your infrastructure. For example, how many of you using the password less than 8 bytes? Okay, excellent. In my laptop, if your password is less than 8 bytes, I can break your password in 5 seconds. Any password in 5 seconds. So by doing that, if you extend your password into 11 bytes, using the advanced computer today, and need to break your password about 41 years. Using the advanced computer today, 41 years. So that means it simply extend additional 3 bytes, a little bit suffer from your brain. You need to memorize 11 bytes for your password, but that can secure your entire life. You don't need to memorize again using the same password. You don't need to reset the password every 3 months. So in this approach, we call cyber hygiene. So I do encourage every people try to exercise your cyber hygiene, try to build appropriate behavior using in the cyberspace. And that can be, I couldn't say 100% protect. It's pretty much good enough to protect yourself. For example, I using the password. I didn't document all the password into using any support software or any password online application because sometimes I don't trust the third party store my credential for myself. So I just using a A4 paper to write down all the password I have. And I never put it in the electronic form. That's what I do in cyberspace. I know a lot of computer hackers are also using the same exercise. As I mentioned, you're using 11 password, 11 byte of password, that can last you for 41 years. So you don't need to hustle, don't fear need to rememorize again for your entire life. So that would be one very effective way. And also consider the cost of opportunity, because a lot of people, they encourage deploy advanced computer technology. It really depends on when and how you deploy that kind of technology, because for example, like artificial intelligence just mentioned, it's getting, they're growing very quickly. A lot of detective tool, a lot of offensive tool, they just evolve from day to day. So if you can adopt the most advanced technology, the cost could be pretty high. But if you try to adopt most commercial available tool, that could be could be reduced, very significantly reduce your cost of opportunity. So I do encourage you try to deploy most commercial available software tool to well defend your system as well. The third part will be the cybersecurity governance issue, that also back to the internet governance. One thing quite different from internet governance, because internet governance is centralized. For example, like IP addressing, we have APNIC in Asia-Pacific region. We can define the entire policy architecture for the entire Asia-Pacific region. And for domain name, I can define the entire domain name governance policy on the planet. So when we're talking about cybersecurity governance, we don't have centralized authority to define that kind of policy for us. So we also need to leverage multi-stakeholder model, try to collaborate with our partners to develop our suitable norm or our suitable rule to apply it in our operation as well. So in terms of cybersecurity, you need to try your best to collaborate different kind of partner, either your software supplier or your international partner, or just mention registrar, APNIC, ICANN. You try to build a relationship with that kind of institution. They can, probably that will be a good platform to exchange the idea and also to do the capacity building for yourself and try to conduct to share experience, how to well prepare, how to defend the cyber attack among the same stakeholder. That's my recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny. Anyone else wants to weigh in on this topic? Edmon?
Edmon here. Happy to add to what Kenny was just saying. I think a couple points that I just came to mind. One is collaboration. That is key. I think a lot of people, the old mindset about confidential as secure is no longer the approach. You have to be open about your own systems as well in order to collaborate. One of the things is, for example, leakages. If nobody knows that something leaked, then nobody can prepare themselves either. It's a cybersecurity problem for everyone suddenly. So I think collaboration is, in my mind, a very key aspect of developing cybersecurity systems across the world today. And also these collaboration is the way to build trust. Earlier, Kenny also talked about zero trust. When we talk about zero trust, it's about the systems, the technical protocols. You never trust what is being sent. It's not the people. Zero trust is actually to build trust among the people. So you can trust other people because the systems and the protocol and the technology has a zero trust model that verifies everything that comes in and out. So that is a really important aspect. And finally, I think as Kenny was saying, this hygiene issue, I think it's really interesting. And cybersecurity is never going to be 100%. When you're online, somebody can access you, therefore it's never 100%. It's always about identifying where you might be attacked more and increasing the defense for that particular area. whether it's personal or a company-wide security system, it's never going to be 100%. But you have to imagine, you know, for example, a dissident journalist at a particular country, they know where the attack might come from, and that's where you increase your defense. You know, or if you were, you know, you're a banker or something, you might know better who and how people might attack you and increase that particular part. So it's not about, it's never about making sure it's, you know, 100% safe or secure. It's never going to happen. It's about, you know, increasing the cost of attack to you, and so on. And finally, password, I think we're still going to have password for quite some time. And in order to make a very long password, I've been taught actually a very interesting trick is that just think of it as passphrase. So pick a song, a lyrics or something, best if it's not English, everyone has their own language, and pick the first syllable of that whole sentence of lyrics. It will look so randomized that it's a really good passphrase password.
Thank you, Edmon. Let's hear from Raj.
Yeah, so just one thing I want to say. Some of you may find this an interesting comment. So, and the comment is, cybersecurity is not an IT problem. So let me repeat that. Cybersecurity is no longer an IT problem. It's everyone's problem. One of the biggest issues I think we're facing is that the attack vectors and the threat actors that are at play now, they are attacking everything and anyone. So it's not just about ICT systems, they're getting into health and education, because that's where they see potential value. So what that means is that, you know, when we are thinking about this, that education awareness has to be across industries and across sectors. So that's one of the missing pieces at the moment, that, you know, we are not looking at it from a whole ecosystem perspective. You know, most people still think cybersecurity is an IT problem. It no longer is the case. And with, you know, AI and whatever evolution will come out of AI, I think it's going to get even worse going down that track. So, yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that brings us to the next question. I mean, I was started with talking about how AI is creating misinformation, deepfake videos, voice cloning, and all the things that it is doing, even writing songs, making art, and almost everything. So what can we trust? And in terms of that, who do you think is responsible for tackling this misinformation, fake news, and all the things that is going? Because within my group, we looked at a number of cases, and they're quite serious. Things that have been, crimes that have been committed, and suicides, and others that have eventuated because of the use of generative AI like ChatGPT and others is alarming. So given we have talked about the multi-stakeholder model, who is the responsible? The panelists, please. Not me.
Okay. I am now trying to making my answer. Okay. It is hard question, but multi-stakeholder, who is taking the responsibility? It is a rather philosophical question, but let's you know, share my take. As I said, I don't really like multi-stakeholder as the phrase, but it is important at the same time. Multi-stakeholder, for example, the Internet Governance Forum is defined and provided as the dialogue place for the multi-stakeholder, non-binding. Then it is still some sort of profound, was quite a philosophical phrase. For me, my take is like this. We have okay, let's say the three stakeholders are here. One is the government, public, responsible for the public policy. The second is the private sector. Private sector companies, the supreme aim is, what do you think it is? A company's supreme aim is earn as much as possible to give the dividend to the shareholder. That's a supreme goal. Then they have their own discretion for the business policy. It should be respected. The third stakeholder, technical community, I'd say. The technical community's mission is to make the rule and the identifier or protocol to get the basis of the internet. Then these three have the different angle to see the problem, right? Then we emphasize multi-stakeholder model because of someone do really multilateral way to set the rule, even for the under the things under the responsibility of the technical community. That is the reason why we need to sometimes raise the voice when the intergovernmental body setting some statement which may interfere the technical community's realm. No, not true. That kind of statement should be written through the multi-stakeholder process because that statement involves a lot of stakeholders. In that term, multi-stakeholder approach is really important. Then otherwise, in the flip side, for example, as the technical community habitant, I sometimes asked like, can we splinter the internet? Can we fragment the internet? Can they do that? To me, my answer, I don't know. Right? For example, the China, mainland China, for example, Russia has some, that kind of sovereign states has their own discretion and power to set the public policy into the country, and then foreign policy for a diplomatic action. And then sometimes they need to make a war if needed, or they have their own right to put the sanction to some countries. That's a foreign policy, and then that's because the government has such a discretion and power, and then it is not held by the technical committee. In this way, the stakeholders have their own power and discretion, which should be respected by the other stakeholders. That's the reason why we need to have that dialogue between stakeholders to have the better understanding on the other stakeholders' perspective to get it right in my own power and discretion. In a way, multi-stakeholder is important, and then the cooperation is really, really important among the stakeholders. I stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. So, yes, Athena?
So just to add on, a lot of the emerging issues, sometimes they are so emerging, all the stakeholders don't know what to do about it. They don't even know their own positions or interests about it. And I think that is where, like Akinori mentioned, the multi-stakeholder approach, the key thing is the dialogue. So we bring these people together and we start talking about it, and through the discussion process, their own interest positions and what is the problem statement of this issue becomes a lot sharper and clearer to everyone. And to give you an example, and this is a live example that's happening right now in ICANN, blockchain. So blockchain domain names, what do we do about it? How should we approach blockchain domain names? Because if you are familiar with this issue, what it actually means is an alternative internet altogether. And how do we then bridge it to the domain name system? Do we leave it on its own? What do we do about it? So where ICANN comes in is we have technical experts who study the issue, and at ICANN meetings or any webinars, we will present this information and what it could possibly mean to different stakeholders. And then the stakeholders, with this knowledge, then have a much better understanding of how they should approach it from their own interests and positions. And in turn, at ICANN, what are some of the necessary policies that need to be made? Like, for example, how should the generic name supporting organizations treat alternative domain names, for instance? It's a question that is still being debated. We don't have an answer yet. I don't know how long it will take. But just to give you an example, when there are emerging issues, the multi-stakeholder approach can facilitate the policy development process. And this is also at a more in the longer term, then builds trust in the process. Because when you don't know how to deal with a policy, you come together and you talk about it. And when you find a solution, everyone buys into that solution. And that is also how we create trust in the governance approach. Yeah.
Thank you, Athena. We'll wrap up this topic as we are running out of time with the questions for the audience. Okay, so I have two questions for you. No, I have questions for you. Should governments regulate online misinformation more aggressively? Yes or no? Hands up if yes, hands down if no. Oh, most of you don't like regulation. Interesting. And what do you think is the biggest cybersecurity threats today? Is it data breaches? Yes? Hands up? No? Misinformation and fake news? Okay. State-sponsored cyber attacks? Oh. And weak regulatory frameworks. Okay. So we'll take one question from the audience to wrap up this topic before we move on to the next. Yep. Where's the person with the mic?
Yeah, I'll just try and be loud. Okay. Am I audible? Okay. Hi. Yeah, I'll just be very quick with this. I was just noting down a few keywords because for us in the audience, the main three keywords today were multi-stakeholder, zero trust, and policy making at the same time. But let's say like when we talk about zero trust, how does, I mean, none of it connects, right? It's kind of ironic to talk about all three of them in the same context. Like multi-stakeholder and policy do definitely go together. But how are these systems connected? Like when we talk about zero trust and the systems, talking about zero trust, how do we manage to make and implement these systems in an increasingly, should I use the word globalized world, and where, despite zero trust just being about the systems right now, it's so difficult for even these stakeholders to trust each other. So how do we do effective policy making? Because it just sounds too ironic to include all of them in the same statement.
Yeah.
I should be accountable for this question because I mentioned zero trust. Sorry. Actually, zero trust is just as mentioned in the cyber region. We do have different kind of element. For example, we have blind trust. The origin of the internet is blind trust, and we say blind, but basically we trust people. That's why we connect each other, and to make sure all the systems are interoperable to each other. That's blind trust. And actually, blind trust probably fulfill 90% of the global internet as well. Zero trust is another extreme in the cyber region. That means you don't trust anything in terms of system. You verify everything by yourself and by any tool to verify everything. And it really depends on, back to my original principle, is opportunity cost. If you try to implement zero trust, the opportunity cost will be extremely high if you try to implement in the global scale. Not to mention that kind of global scale is outside your country jurisdiction. It's impossible to implement zero trust from your country point of view. So it could be doable within your organization, within your university, because that will be in a self-governance regime. So you are able to implement the system based on your own rule. But if you want to deploy the rule in the public space, in a public regime, you need to obtain the other stakeholder opinion to get approval by different kind of stakeholder. And sometimes their interests could be conflict each other. So if you want to deploy in a global scale, in a global public space, then you need to follow multi-stakeholder model to define the global acceptable policy. And once the policy been approved or been accepted by all kind of stakeholders, then you can deploy the policy. And then that could be zero trust, could be blind trust, whatever. So that will be based on the principle of the policy-making process.
Yeah, just adding on that, and also what I meant by, because I'm also the culprit of repeating zero trust. So it's not about me not trusting you in some sense, but it is me not trusting receiving an email from you. Okay, so my system needs to check whether you own that domain that is sending email to me, or whether your organization legitimately owns the domain that sends an email to me. I will not just, oh, I see your name coming in as an email and trust it that way. And that requires the technology behind it, things like end-to-end encryption and those kind of things. And why? What's end-to-end encryption at the end of the day? In the past, when you send an email or a message through the network, everybody can see it. Right? Your ISPs can see it when you send a message. Actually, today, most SMS systems are still like that. It's completely naked on the wire. But that's where end-to-end encryption is important. We trust our ISPs, but wait a minute, we don't trust you that much. We're going to encrypt it, and we trust you to deliver the stuff. Generally, you won't be peeking into it, right? But let's go with the zero trust, just not to make you feel so tempted to look at my stuff. That's zero trust. And zero trust is built on technologies such as the private key infrastructure. I don't know whether you understand that. Basically, it's a private public key set so that it's completely public. Who and how, and it could be completely secured in a public version. And that also comes into play with things like open source system. Why do systems trust open source systems more? Because I can see whether it's compromised, right? I will trust non-open source systems less because I cannot see whether they might be compromised. That's zero trust. So it's not about, not so much about the governance, but about the kind of technology that you implement in terms of zero trust. I hope that makes sense.
Thank you, Edmon. And we will have more audience questions later. Let's move on to the third and final topic, which is on multi-stakeholder internet governance and regional cooperation. So what I'm interested in is looking at some best practices within the Asia-Pacific region on internet governance. Yes, Raj?
So I won't tell you about a best practice because I'm sure you've all heard of this before. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about where I think multi-stakeholder is actually heading, which may actually help the answer the question a little bit better. So when multi-stakeholder, this whole thing came around, of course, the internet community, the technical community in particular, were big proponents of this, right? And it certainly has a whole lot of value, as others have said in previous answers, that it gives you a space to dialogue, brings parties together, etc., etc. But, and this is the big but, what's been happening in more recent years is what we see are the proponents or the supporters or the allies we had, be they government or business or whoever else they may be, of the multi-stakeholder model. They are not really that genuine anymore. I mean, we can pretend that no, they're genuine in their approach. They're not. Governments are more interested to see what they can get out of it. You see governments which are pulling back on support of the multi-stakeholder model in little ways, not necessarily across the board, but in little ways here and there. You see businesses who are driven by their commercial agenda. I mean, I will not name any names of big companies, but just because they are part of a discussion on multi-stakeholder model, it's because they have a business reason, they have a commercial agenda, right? So let's not gloss over that fact that, this whole concept of what the multi-stakeholder model was, and many of us who still hold it very dearly, that itself is changing, it's shifting. Edmon early on made a very important point, which I hope you all realize what the implications are. He said, who sets the agenda? And that is, I think, one of the problems we have now. When we have multi-stakeholder decisions or groupings or working groups or whatever else there may be, the question is who actually set the agenda? Because whoever sets the agenda controls the narrative, right? It's an old tactic that's been used for centuries or millennia even, across all things, nothing to do with this technology, right? Whoever controls the narrative controls everything else that will happen in and around it. So I think that's one of the dangers we face now going into it. People have seen the value of the multi-stakeholder model, but also how, for some, be it governments or corporate sector or even civil society for that matter, it can be detrimental to the agenda they're pursuing. So then that creates a whole set of new issues and problems that we need to deal with. So I thought I'd leave it at that. And as some great examples, we have the Asia-Pacific Regional Internet Governance Forum, which I chaired some years ago, and which of course DotAsia is the secretary, as you Jasmine's here too. That is a great forum because it brings a whole lot of people together. Even the APNIC meeting, the APNIC hosts 2 conferences every year. You may not realize it, but that's also a multi-stakeholder. Anyone can come in and speak. Anyone can contribute to our mailing lists and be part of the discussions. Of course, the discussions are very IP address and policy related, but that's okay. APNG Camp, I hope, has a discussion forum. I mean, I haven't been involved in APNG Camp for quite a while, but I hope that all of you can contribute to those discussions. But one other thing is, when you go back home, don't leave this and say, okay, we went to Iizuka, we had fun time, we had all these supposed experts talk about stuff, we had good food, and we came back home. Because if you don't remain part of those discussions when you're back and doing whatever you're doing, being studying or working or whatever you are, then that's no longer part of the multi-stakeholder model anymore, right? And it's upon you. See, no one else is going to make it happen for you. You need to make it happen. That's the other part of it, right? It's not someone else's responsibility, it's your responsibility. You've been part of these many discussions, now continue it, go back. There's organizations and agencies, there's entities that you can interact with back home and then bring them back into the conversation again. So I'll leave it there, thanks.
Thank you. All right, I mean, we have talked about internet fragmentation a couple of times. Would the panelists mind explaining to our audience what internet fragmentation is? Thank you.
Again, I said before. Fragmentation, I actually thought about that quite out loud. And then actually our internet is fragmented in a various way. To discuss about the fragmentation, we sometimes say one world, one internet. It's actually the dogma of the internet technical community. We don't think our own internet should be fragmented. One internet, one world, one internet kind of concept. And then actually either ICANN or RIL have no power to separate or isolate one part of the internet. So that's something happened 2 or 3 years ago. Then, so one world, one internet, thinking about one world, one internet. Then, but we actually segmenting a lot of way. For example, we never failed to install the packet filter in the router to protect the web resource. Isn't it fragmenting anything? Maybe fragmenting something. Then, for example, yeah, zero trust is a very good new technology to protect the access and the information asset. But still, we have the boundary control. So why do we do the boundary control? That's because needed. And then that's fragmenting the internet in some way. So if you see the lot of place on the internet, that's really, various way it is fragmented, not separated, but fragmented. So it's really, I am not telling the answer to the question, but it is really good exercise for you to think about how you answer to this question. And then the fragmentation discussion bring us a really, really good chance for that kind of thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Edmon?
Yeah, just quickly adding to that, I think one of the things that when you think about fragmentation of the internet, people say the internet is always fragmented. First of all, remember, decentralized doesn't always means fragmented. The other thing you want to think about is that we, in the internet concept, we have this layered concept. There is a layer of for the physical layer, and then the protocol layer, the application layer, and so on. And there are users, and legal and political layers. When the political and legal layers start, fragmenting, that to me doesn't fragment the protocol and the lower layers. However, when the top parts and goes further down, as the fragmentation becomes even more so, it could affect eventually the lower layers. That, I think, is at the heart of the concern for internet fragmentation. If you ask me today, I would say that today's internet is not fragmented. For those who say that it has always been fragmented, I would say most of what you say are fragmented is probably distributed or decentralized. That's not fragmentation. Fragmentation, when I think about it, it's really about the very core technical internet protocol layers. So.
Thank you. We have run out of time, so we will let the audience have a couple of questions, and we'll wrap it up. But the panelists will be available here, so if you have any burning questions, you can approach them after this panel discussion and ask. Thank you.
Yeah, hi. I have a question related to multi-workers framework, so multi-stakeholder framework. It seems that it's quite inclusive and comprehensive in dealing with problems that faces the world today. But when it comes to AI, given the pace and the speed at which it's changing, and it seems like when you're dealing with conventional AI, generative AI has already come along. So how do you think multi-stakeholder model remains effective in dealing with such a rapid advancement in AI? Thank you.
I'd like to go first. That's good question. We are, when we are discussing in the IGF is Internet Governance Forum. And then we have many sessions which deal with AI. And AI is a completely different thing. Then if we talk about the Internet, then it's a multi-stakeholder approach and the open and inclusive is quite work well, because we need to set a policy of, for example, distributing the IP addresses. Then if does one player don't comply to that policy, they cannot get the resource. That's a very big restriction. But in case of the AI, it's a little bit different. AI can be produced in one segment, and then AI can be produced in everywhere. Then there is no, some constraint which the AI operator need to obey. So in that case, public policy to prohibit something only works to regulate the AI. maybe not only is excessive, but it's a basic concept. And then actually the public policy officers are trying very hard to set good rule. For example, the European Union is really successfully establishing some acts. So that's the case. And then maybe hope it works for you.
Okay, just simply to comment. The first comment, I put one scenario. If any audience come to the stage and try to raise the question, I will told him, you don't need to raise the question. I already understand what you try to ask. And if that's a policy proposal, I told all the entire community, you don't need to vote. I already know the consensus. That's the AI, what the future AI is going about. But we haven't got there. Probably one day we will reach there. And that's the first question. Today, AI is still using as a tool. For example, you can using AI to propose your policy proposal, to make a decent policy proposal. You can using AI to do the due diligence for the proposal. I think it's fine, but we haven't reached that yet. And the second stage is, and we just have joined our board meeting 2 weeks ago, and we're talking about, we're going to set up an interplanetary internet registry, and what kind of IP address we can assign for aliens, for example. Then the rest question will be, how about the cat, the dog in a plant? We should also give them the right to register IP address as well. And how about AI? So actually, we do explore that kind of possibility. We could allow AI to hold in the IP addresses space, or allow the cat or dog to hold in the address space in the plant. So that's a potential exploration in our discussion. That's it. Thank you.
Yes, Edmon, a quick one.
Yeah, just quickly adding to what Kenny said. I mean, the scenario where people start making decisions dependent on AI, that is obviously a problem, and that's obviously a governance issue that we should deal with. But today, I think when you think about AI governance, to me, it's really about data governance and algorithmic biases or algorithmic accountability. Right? That's really what we're talking about, and we want to deal with the issues that we want to deal with is bias. The very popular example of prison sentencing using AI. That's problematic because in the U.S., if you're a black guy, you probably get a longer sentence, and that's a problem, right? And the other part, besides bias, it's about data colonization. You're replacing certain and utilizing your dominance into other areas. So those are the governance aspects that you look at. And when you talk about multi-stakeholder model, as Akinori mentioned, I guess more I hear from him, I realize the thing about democracy, I think it's Winston Churchill that said that, it's the worst system, but it's somehow better than the other ones that we tried. So yes, that is the way I see it. It takes time to create policies. Laws or regulations or guidelines never can keep up with technology development. But it doesn't mean we don't start the discussion, because in my mind, I really believe in it, is that as the conversation starts, even if the policy or the legislation is not set up yet, that changes corporate behavior. That already changes how people who are developing the systems make it. So the act of the discussion, even if at the end of the day there's no consensus, no policy, changes already the behavior. And that's, I think, a very important part. And one last point before we close, I think the multi-stakeholder model is not perfect at all right now, and that's why we all, but I still love it. What is important and what it has shown over the past years that makes me still love it is because it can evolve. Sometimes some of the forums have harder process to actually make it evolve, but one critical aspect is I think it has to continue to evolve, because what we're dealing with 25 years ago is different than what we're dealing with now. The structure, as I think Raj mentioned, very important, how we set the agenda, the structures for which, and that's process, off process, right? It makes you feel like it's very boring and, I don't care because you want to deal with the issues, but actually no. You have to deal with how the process of processes actually work, who gets to the table, who sets the agenda. That's how multi-stakeholder model can continue to evolve and be the worst, but system and the worst best system. All right.
Thank you, Edmon. We'll just take one more question.
So thank you for your insightful discussion. And I believe there are certain differences and the voice and cultural languages and geography. But in my understanding, the states in the Asia-Pacific region also have different political regimes and ideology and foreign policies. So my question will be a little bit political, but do you think these differences in ideologies can be a big challenge in achieving what we are expecting for international governance and regional cooperation?
Good question. Do we have a good answer? Yes, Edmon.
I don't think we will have good answers for that, but one of the things that your question brought to mind is, and in following up with the multi-stakeholder model, is that people think that multi-stakeholderism is an ideology as well. So when you challenge that, and I think it is actually the right approach to think about it, is that multi-stakeholder model, when we talk about it, is not something you cannot challenge. When an ideology cannot be challenged, that's probably the problem, right? If you can challenge it, which is what we were asking, then keep challenging it.
Sam.
Yes.
So just very quickly, I'll add something else. You're quite right. When I spoke early on in the morning during the introduction, I said we're a very diverse region, right? And yes, there's different ideologies, there's different regime types, there's different thoughts, and I think that's a good thing. That's what makes us the Asia Pacific, right? When we start discussing issues, there's always a lot of disagreement. And maybe so there should be, because if you don't disagree, if everyone agrees with everyone else, then what's the point of the discussion, right? When it comes to the internet itself, I think from my perspective, that we need to ensure that the actual internet, which is what supports everything else, remains untouched, right? Because if we lose that, that's where the value is. The reason the internet has been so successful is because it allows us to do things without really worrying about whether the system will support it. And because we know the system will support it, we just got to build all the other bits to make it happen. The other thing is, it allows us to be end-to-end, from any corner of the world to any other corner of the world. Yes, you might put up geographical or political boundaries in the process, but the fact still remains, the network can still route around things and get somewhere else. So, trying to answer your question, I think it's okay to disagree on a few things, as long as we can agree that we're going to agree on these things and we're going to work together on this, right? So that layered approach, and just rough consensus. And one last thing, the biggest problem we have in the whole ecosystem, in fact, for humankind, it's the top layer. Do you know what the top layer is? It's actually called the idiot layer. That's what screws everything else up.
Thank you, Raj. Okay, thank you very much. We will wrap it up. Thank you for being a wonderful and attentive audience. And I would also like to thank the expert members of this panel for their insight and for their contribution towards the different topics. If you still have some other burning question, they will be around. Approach them and ask them. Or you can come to me and whatever questions you have, and I will get you in contact with them. Thank you very much and have a great day.